The following video shows how we replaced our electric water heater. Please keep in mind we are not professionals. If you wish to replace your water heater yourself using our instruction, you do so at your own risk. Please be careful. Some steps we took are not shown, since we both worked on the project and sometimes forgot to turn on the camera. Here is a list of most of the tools we used. Some installations may require more parts and tools. Some may require less. You may wish to use a dolly or hand truck to move your water heater. We chose to go without one. Also, we only replaced the water heater using a similar setup to the previous installation, so you won't see an expansion tank or mixing valve, which are required in some regions. Let's get started. First, locate the water heater circuit in the breaker box. Shut it off. Make sure it's off. Open the junction box access panel on the water heater. Use a circuit tester to make sure the electricity to the unit is actually off. If it is, disconnect the water heater wires from the conduit. Make note of how the wires were connected. Turn on hot water side of all faucets in the house. This will flush hot water out of the water heater tank, so you won't get burned. After water from faucets runs cold, shut off water supply to the water heater. Leave faucets open. This will help drain the tank later. We discovered this shutoff valve was leaking, so the water had to be shut off at the main. This problem added more steps to our project that you may not face. Connect a good garden hose to the water heater's drain valve. Put the other end of the hose outside, either through a window, out the door, or in our case, just straight out to the driveway. Slowly open the drain valve. Make sure there are no leaks in the hose. If it leaks at the connection, carefully tighten the hose connector with a wrench. You don't want to break off the drain valve. Remember to leave those faucets on in the house. Now, we need to tackle the failing shutoff valve. This one has been soldered on. We want to replace it with one that is threaded. It'll be easier to repair in the future. We'll need to get parts for this, but first we'll disconnect all the pipes to see exactly what else we'll need, and to get the old heater out of the way. Since the old supply lines were connected with compression fittings, it was easier to cut them off with a pipe cutter and start fresh with new ones. We decided to sweat off the old valve, but you could cut it off with a pipe cutter. To sweat off the old valve, heat the joint or the fitting to melt the silver solder. Hold the fitting with a wrench and gently wiggle it until it slides off. Drop it into a bucket of water. It will be hot. The pressure release valve also needs to be disconnected. The pipe cutters didn't fit in this case. In retrospect, we could have sweat the fitting off, but a hacksaw was used instead. The pipe will be replaced or recut later, so a jagged cut is okay here. The old water heater has been removed. It still had some water in it, so it was heavy. You may need a dolly for this step. Time for a parts run. I stayed behind, prepared pipes for soldering, and moved the new water heater into place. Take a bit of sandpaper. Sand the ends of the copper pipe until shiny and clean. We roughly measured how much new copper pipe we'd need to install the new shutoff. Basically the same setup as the previous install, except we added threaded adapters and the valve is threaded as well. Be careful not to over-tighten the pipe cutters as you go, or the pipe could bend. The cutter should turn fairly easily around the pipe. I'm preparing a 3/4 inch copper threaded male adapter for soldering by sanding the inside of the fitting. I'm using sandpaper since I don't have a pipe brush. It works just as well. I'm also sanding a short piece of copper pipe that will be soldered to another fitting. I'll sand the inside of the elbows as well. Basically, you sand the parts of the pipe and fittings where they join. So the outside of the pipe, the inside of the fittings. Flux time. This is to be applied with a flux brush to any copper part that will be soldered. Flux prepares the copper and helps draw the silver solder into a joint. It goes inside fittings and on the outside of pipes that go into fittings. I've put the threaded adapter on the pipe where the shutoff goes, on the cold side. It's ready to be soldered. On the hot side, I'll put on an elbow for soldering and put on a small piece of copper pipe. Time to solder. I like to make a hook in the solder. I'll heat the fitting, not the pipe. Don't heat too much or it will distort the joints. I touch the solder to the joint to see if it's hot enough to melt the solder and draw it into the joint. This will seal the joint. After you've sealed it, be careful not to touch or move the pipe until it is cool. If you do, it could loosen and break the seal. Here's a tip. If you have trouble getting the fitting hot enough, there may still be water in the line. Stuff a ball of sandwich bread into the pipe and try again. The bread will melt away when the water is turned back on, so don't worry about needing to get it out. He's soldering the elbow. It's a good idea to heat the elbow in the middle. That way it will heat evenly and you can solder both ends of the elbow to the pipes all at once. Since we want to avoid putting direct torch heat on the pressure release valve and its connection to the adapter, we soldered the threaded adapter to a piece of copper pipe before attaching it to the valve. Pipe dope should be applied to the threads of the fitting before connecting the pipe to the valve. Yep, that's a lot of pipe dope. That'd be my fault. Here, we've already screwed on the shutoff valve, and now the other end of the pipe is being attached. The adapter threads have been covered in pipe dope before attaching the shutoff valve. Use 2 wrenches for this, one to hold the finished pipe still, the other to twist on the new piece. These fittings will attach the water heater supply lines to the copper pipes. I've already attached the compression nuts and rings onto the end of the pipes. On the threaded part of the compression fitting, I've put plumber's tape around the threads that will join with the new water heater supply line. Use 2 wrenches to attach the threaded part of the brass compression fitting to one end of the water heater supply line. Then, using 2 wrenches, join the supply line to the copper pipe by joining the compression fitting. Hold the bottom part still, turn the top nut until tight. Apply plumber's tape to the threads on the water line connector located on top of the water heater tank. Gently bend the supply line and attach it to the water line connector. Make sure to connect the water line coming into the tank, the line with the shutoff valve, to the cold side on the tank. It will either be marked with a letter C or there will be a blue color on the tank pipe. Repeat the steps for the other supply line. The other side, where there is no shutoff, will be the hot side where the water comes out of the tank. This side will be marked with the letter H, or there will be red on the tank pipe. It's time to test our connections and turn the water back on, very slowly. Remember, because there is a lot of air in the water line, leave all the faucets in the house open, even the cold side, since the water was shut off at the main. Leaving the faucets open will allow air to escape from the line. You will hear the faucet sputter while the air is being released. If you don't do this step, the new water heater will not fill with water properly and a heating element could burn up. Our connections are holding up, but the compression fittings need a little tightening. It's important to continue running faucets for several minutes to make sure air is out of the line, and to rinse out the pipes and the new water heater. Make sure the water heater is completely full before making any electrical connections. After we are sure there are no leaks and that the tank is completely full of water, we are ready to connect electric. Note, the circuit to the water heater should still be off at this point, and the faucets can now be turned off. This is important. If you are uncertain about the wiring, please consult a qualified electrician. Look at the junction box on the new heater. This one is on the same place as the one on the old heater. There is a hole under the paper on the junction box cover. Here is where we'll put the wires from the conduit. Put the wires through the hole, except the bare copper ground wire. With a screwdriver, you can attach the bare copper ground wire to the green grounding screw located on the junction box cover. If you wish, do this step after connecting the other wires. The wire is a bit tough to bend. Needle nose pliers work well for this. Pull the rest of the conduit wires through the hole to meet the water heater wires. Now, following the previous water heater installation as well as the water heater instruction booklet, twist together the black water heater wire to the black or hot conduit wire. Secure with a wire nut. We like to put electrical tape on top of that too. Next, twist together the red water heater wire to the white or neutral conduit wire, then secure with a wire nut and electrical tape. Carefully push the wires into the junction box space, then replace the cover. Now, let's see if this works. Go to the circuit panel and turn electric on to the water heater. Wait a couple of hours for the water to fully heat. But you will notice at the faucet the water will start to become warm fairly quickly. Okay, that's about it. That's how we installed our water heater. This job took us a little over 3 hours because we had to do a parts run and we had run into a few problems, but everything's working just fine and we're not having any leaks. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you so much for watching. Take care out there and I'll see you next time. Bye!